Hi, I'm Natalie Gordon, and I'm a school trust specialist, and I'd like to show you our website. Our website is schools.utah.gov/school-and-trust, and when you go to the training page, you'll come right up here to School Community Council training. So we've got links to tonight's trainings. Here's where the evaluation is. We've got videos and PowerPoints for prior trainings. And then we also have like this right here is a page that goes along with Paula's training that she's giving tonight. So that's the training resource. Let me go back and show you a couple more resources. This is the council page. And if you click on the council page, there's information about elections. And then the school website requirements. And the school website requirements are important. And I know that you're not responsible, usually, unless you're the principal or his staff, for updating the school website. But this right here is where you can find a rules of order template and a list of the requirements for your school's website. And we'll talk about that a little bit in just a minute. The final thing I want to show you, and you do have to go back to the main page to get the side button all the time. The next thing I want to show you is right here, contact us. If you have any questions or concerns ever about anything, please feel free to contact us. Paula is our director. Karen and I help manage the program. We have all been involved with community councils. I've been involved for 15 years. They've both been involved since the beginning. So we understand the questions. We want to help you be successful. So please feel free to contact us anytime. Now I'm going to stop sharing that screen. And Cynthia, I will, your attendance is already registered to get Midas credit. So just know that because you're on here, we're keeping your name and we're going to go in and double check it with Midas. If you have not registered on Midas yet, you can do that until Friday. This is a great idea, but you all can hear me, so I don't need to read it. And I don't know what to tell you if you can't see your screen. The guy that had the problem yesterday logged off and then came back on and could see my screen. So hopefully that works. If not, the talking is way more important than the PowerPoint. And the PowerPoint will also be available on our website. So let's get started. On the training page of our website, sorry, I'm a little bit disconnected today. Okay, so school community councils is what we're talking about, and this is an introduction. So some of you may have served on councils before. This may be brand new. Really, whatever your experience is, there's always more to learn, and we're always grateful for the opportunity to teach more. So the first question that you ask about school community councils is, why do school community councils exist? And school community councils were created by the legislature, and they were actually created based on a program that the Salt Lake School District was doing that was really working. And the legislature created them, and they were having a hard time catching on. And then when the school trust became something that was in focus, the legislature decided that the school community councils would be a great place to increase public awareness of the school trust. And so what they did was create school community councils for the trust land distribution, and then those community councils would understand the school trust and advocate for it. So I'm just going to talk for a minute about the school trust. When Utah became a state, the federal government retained a lot of land, and they knew that we would have a hard time using property tax to get great schools if all of that land was federal and they didn't pay tax on it. So they gave us 1/9 of that land back, but they gave it back to us scattered throughout the state. Because it's scattered throughout the state, you can kind of see a checkerboard pattern in there. The blue land on the slide is the trust lands. And in some places it's linked up into a group, but most of them are just these 4 sections per township. So the land was given to the state to be held in trust for K-12 schools, and it was anticipated that the state would make money from the land, and then that would help fund public education. For the first 100 years of statehood, that is not what happened. They were just kind of ignored. When people started looking into the school trust because they heard about it and thought, wow, why are we not having this trust? There was $18 million in the permanent school fund, and it had just been rated by the legislature. So part of the school trust is the land, and the land makes money the way land makes money. So they make money on the land through mining, through oil and gas development, from surface leases. Those surface leases can be for solar fields or for agricultural grazing. You can see here we do have some schools in the state that lease land, and our school trust lands as well, with these telecommunication towers. And telecommunication towers are a great way to raise money on land. So that's one way that the surface team does it. And then also through development. And the development is either commercial and retail or housing. And if you've been in St. George lately, there's a huge housing complex going in at mile marker 2, and that is all on school trust lands, 3,000 acres of school trust lands. And so that's going to be putting money into the permanent fund. Well, the permanent fund, all of the revenue from the land is supposed to go into the permanent fund. And that revenue is supposed to be invested. So, like I said, in 1983, there was $18 million in that permanent fund. Today, there is $2.3 billion in that permanent fund. And that's why the distribution keeps coming. I'm older than a lot of you. And when my son was in kindergarten was the first year that they gave the distribution to the schools. And the distribution that year for all the schools in the state combined was $4.95 million. The distribution next year is going to be over $92 million. So because of wise management of the land and wise investment of the fund, it's grown and the distribution has grown. Another thing that the legislature was interested in as they were thinking about school community councils was how can they involve parents in decision making at the local school level. Utah's legislature really believes in local control, and they really want parents in the school to be part of that process. So one of the things that they've done is they've set up the councils in a way that they will empower parents. So the first way that the legislature created the council to empower parents, the chair of your council must be a parent. There is no way that the chair of your council can be an educator or an administrator, must be a parent. Your school community council requires a 2-parent majority. So if you've got your principal and 2 educators, you need 5 parents to have that 2-parent majority. And finally, only parents choose parents. So parents vote in the election for those council members. And if there's a vacancy on the council, only the parent members on the council appoint the person for that vacancy. So this is really supposed to be parent driven. And it gives us some tools as parents to help us be involved in our school and help us identify areas of academic need in our school. The third reason that the legislature created school community councils was to improve education through collaboration. And that is why we have parents, school employees, and the local school board working together to manage this program. everything that your council does is advisory to your local school board. So your local school board reviews your plan. Your local school board has priorities that they can suggest that you consider while you're creating your plan. They can look at your plan and return it back for any reason, as long as they do it in writing. We don't see that very often. So just know that it's collaboration with all three levels. And the Community Council Code says a couple of really interesting things. The first is that councils can weigh in on any item, any situation that involves their school, either with the principal or with the district. So please don't feel like there's something you shouldn't be talking about. Now, of course, don't talk about individual teachers or individual students. But I served on a council once that wanted to weigh in on school times. So we met, we researched it, we wrote a letter to the district, and we met with district staff. So just know you can advise the local board and your principal. Also, when local boards have decisions to make, quite often they go to the school community council because it's already there and functioning. So 2 years ago, when Farmington High School came into Davis District, I was on the school community council and I got to weigh in on the boundary discussion. They came to my school community council meeting, they presented everything, and then they asked us for our input. That's why, as a parent on the school community council or a school employee on the school community council, it's important that you are available to everybody in your school community so that you can share their information and their interests and their concerns while you're serving on the school community council. Finally, school community councils were created to prudently spend the school land trust program distribution. So they had not been giving a ton of money out from that $18 million permanent state school fund. But what they found was, as the fund got bigger, they needed to distribute some of it so that current students could get the benefit of that trust. And they needed to reinvest some of it so that future students could get the benefit of the trust. And so the school trust distribution comes through school community councils to each individual school in the state. So that is one of the reasons that we have school community councils, is to prudently spend this distribution. In 2001, the average distribution was $10 per student in the state. In this current year, the average distribution is $133 per student in the state. There's some interesting things about how this program is funded. There's some interesting things about the formulas that are used. And if you have any questions about that, it's on the website or you can talk to us. It's a little more in depth than we want to go for a one-on-one, especially since we are taking up good time right now. So, prudently spending the school trust distribution. Let's talk about how. How can your school community council prudently spend that distribution? The first step is for the council to review school-wide assessment data and determine the school's most critical academic needs. So, school-wide assessment data, please, principals and educators, make sure that you are not providing any data that could be used to identify an individual student. The council is supposed to look at group data, not individual data. And looking at that data, the assessment data, you can determine your school's most critical academic needs. I know we've had a problem the last 2 years with end-of-level testing, but there's other school-wide assessment data that can be used, including assessments like Dibbles for reading, they don't call it that anymore, Alex for math, all of these different programming things, or like unit tests that are used that can help you guys identify critical academic needs if end-of-level testing information is not available. So after you have determined the school's most critical academic needs, then you consult with the principal on the teacher and student success plan. The teacher and student success plan is new. This is the second year of the plan. And it was created to help change accountability for school improvement. So the principal prepares the teacher and student success plan, but the principal is required to get feedback from the school community council as part of this plan. The next thing that you do once you have your teacher and student success plan is you create your school land trust plan to support the goals from the success plan. So it is required that your school land trust plan does implement the goals from your success plan. Then as a council, you're responsible to monitor implementation to see if the trust land plan is successful. Check the data during the year. See if it's working the way that you want it to be. See if you're seeing results. And if you're not, see if maybe the plan's not being implemented correctly and there's something that needs to be changed. Or maybe you wrote the plan last year for this year thinking you were going to need tons of science tutors, but because of the coronavirus, really you need reading tutors. You can amend your plan during the year. So make sure that you're monitoring implementation to see that the plan is successful. You can amend the plan if you need to. And you also, sorry, I got distracted. You can amend the plan if you need to. And you can check the budget every meeting to make sure that the funds are being spent as the community council planned. That really was what I was going to say, even though it looks like I forgot. I should turn you guys on when I tell jokes and then you'd have to laugh. Okay, so the first thing that you do when you're creating your school land trust program is identify the academic area that you are going to address. And you identify that based on the data that you have reviewed and the teacher and student success plan. After you identify the academic area, you look at the goal. Okay, we have looked at our reading scores and we need our reading scores to improve. That's your goal. Your academic area is reading. Your goal is let's get these scores to improve. Then you need to look at your measurement. The measurement is how you're going to tell if it's working. So you can say we're going to take a cadence, which is what Dibbles used to be, and we're going to measure beginning, middle, and end of year. And our goal is that 80% of the students will be on grade level reading plan at the end of the year. That's a goal you can measure. Once you do that, you need to figure out how. And this is when the research-based and data-driven programs come in to working in your school with this money. You put together an action plan. The action plan is we're going to need tutors. We're going to need iPads and we're going to need software. All of the things that you're going to do to implement this plan to help you reach the measurement. And then finally, you list how that's going to be spent. The expenditures in your plan need to match the action plan. I had a school once and they said, we are going to decrease the number of students that are in credit recovery. And that's a great goal. And then they said, we're going to do it with a credit recovery class. And one of their expenditures was a brand new computer lab. And I said, I'm going to need you to tell me how this computer lab is going to help with the goal because it's not mentioned in the action plan. So they then said, oh my gosh, we need this computer lab to host the credit recovery classes so that the students can be using the internet to recover credits. And that made perfect sense. So just make sure in your plan that your action plan matches your expenditures. I'm going to show you what the principals see when they create a goal. And the writing on this is really small, so don't feel like you need to read it, but we're just going to look at it to see how this plays out as the principal inputs the goal into the School Land Trust recording system. So this is a Bonneville Junior High School goal. They took a look and realized that they wanted to improve the academic areas of reading, mathematics, and writing. So what they did was they set a goal. The goal was that students taking the English language arts and mathematics first semester benchmark tests will increase the number of students reaching average proficiency by 10% by comparing pre and post semester benchmark results. So what they've done is they've said, we're going to increase the number of students that are proficient. We're going to increase that by 10% from the pre-test to the post-test. And we're focusing in reading, mathematics, and writing. And then they talk about the measurement, and they talk about the actual test that they're going to be giving. It's the GSD pre and post tests. And then they're talking about how they're going to look for that 10% growth in their measurement. Then on the next page of the goal, they list their action steps. Your action plan can be a list like this. It can be bullet points. Really, it just needs to be what we're going to do. So the first one is that each teacher is going to have objectives for each lesson and use the benchmark data in creating lesson plans. The second one is they're going to lower class size so that they can increase the one-on-one teaching in the classes. The third one is they're going to provide tutoring. Fourth is cross-curricular learning activities. So they've got all of these action plans listed out. And then we look at the expenditure. And we're like, okay, we've got the teacher salaries for the additional classes, because remember, we're reducing class size. We've got our after-school tutoring. We've got professional development. That was one of the ones I didn't read. So all of that is here in the expenditures, and you can see that it matches. I have to apologize because I have some really boring slides coming up, and it's because one of the really common feedback on the last training I did 2 weeks ago was that I didn't talk about appropriate expenditures enough. So when you go to the School Land Trust website, there's a page that says resources, and on there it says appropriate expenditures or law and rule. And both of those places are where you can find this. So I'm just going to go over it quickly. And we're going to talk about what are appropriate expenditures. And we've had a change this year from the State Board of Education. So we're going to talk about that too. I'm really sorry about this. So just remember that appropriate expenditures will implement a component of your success plan, that it will be based on the identified most critical academic needs that you identified, that it will have a recommended course of action, your action plan, and then the listing of programs, practices, materials, or equipment. That right there is your expenditures. Remember, it needs to have a direct impact on the instruction of students, and it needs to result in measurable increased student performance. And then this overarching goal for everything that we do through the School Land Trust program, it needs to enhance or improve academic excellence at the school. Now that sounds up here, and we're probably looking at, I want a list of what I can do and what I can't do. So we're going to get a little closer to that with the State Board rule. So what I was just reading was the law. This is the State Board rule. Again, it states, review school-wide assessment data annually. Make sure that what you're proposing is data-driven and evidence-based, and that it will improve educational outcomes, and that it's consistent with the goals of your teacher and student success plan, and consistent with the priorities of your LEA governing board. Now, though both of those things can include these strategies that are measurable and show academic outcomes. So measurable, pre-test, post-test, 10% improvement. And then it can also include Counselors and educators working with students and families on academic and behavioral issues when a direct impact on academic achievement can be measured. That language is saying that if part of your plan is behavioral interventions, you can use this money for that. And there's not a limit as long as it's part of an academic goal with a measurement. So remember, there can't be a standalone behavioral goal. It can't say, we're going to reduce referrals to the office by 10%. That's a measurable goal, but it's not with an academic outcome. But you can say, you know what, one of the things that is making our math instruction struggle is because we have so many behavioral outbursts. So as part of our math goal to increase proficiency, we are going to be implementing a behavioral program with referrals to the office. So make sure to keep that part of an academic goal. Now, this is the part that is new. The State Board of Education listed some priorities. And remember, they start again by saying direct impact on instruction in the areas of most critical academic need and consistent with the priorities of the governing board. But then they give you this list to increase achievement in English, language arts, mathematics, and science, and for high schools to increase graduation rates and promote college and career readiness. Well, I was a social science major, and you can see there's no social studies in here. So if your council wants to do a social studies goal, you're going to have to show that you need that more than an English, language arts, mathematics, or science goal. And the way that you'll do that is this next slide. And it is that you will request local board approval of the plan to address other academic goals, as long as it's in accordance with the core standards, and as long as the action plan is data-driven, evidence-based, and has a direct impact on the instruction of students. We keep saying that over and over again. And you have to show the data that is being used to drive this goal. Why is this a critical academic need? And then what data are you going to use to measure the progress? That's something that your local board is going to be handling. But again, we are always here to advise, and you can also contact your district for questions about that, but don't do it for a little while because we're still training all of the local boards. So finally, you can spend no more than $7,000 for an academic goal that includes digital citizenship training or safety principles. Both of these things will need to be part of a measurable academic goal. So if you're saying our goal is reading and we are using this software, and one of the reasons that we're not being successful is because the students are not being good digital citizens during their reading instruction. So then you can say, we're going to add to our reading goal some digital citizenship training. And as long as that's under $7,000, it's allowed. So just remember, digital citizenship training and safety principles training needs to be less than $7,000 and part of an academic goal. That doesn't mean $7,000 per goal, or even $7,000 for digital citizenship and $7,000 for safety principles. That's combined. And then please always remember this: a school district or local school board may not require a council to spend the school's program funds on a specific use or set of uses. A couple of years ago, we saw about half of the plans coming from one of our districts saying, we need these to implement our new reading program. And we thought, is the district requiring them to purchase these things to implement the new reading program? So we called the district and said, hey, can you just let us know what's going on? And what was going on was they told the principals, you've got 3 places you can take this money from. You can take it from your, to purchase these reading supplies, from your textbook money, from your general fund money, or from your school land trust money if you have a reading goal. And so when the principal discussed that with the councils, about half of the councils decided to use it as part of their school and trust goal. So it wasn't the district requiring it. If the district says, you know, we are cutting pay for our counselors, so we need every school to pay their counselor out of school land trust program funds, that's not allowed. And then finally, we're currently in discussions with our advisory committee about student incentives, but student incentives need to be part of an academic goal. They can also be used for behavioral interventions in an academic goal. And currently the law is that it may not exceed $2 per awarded student in an academic school year. So say that your son is the winner of the science fair and the winner of the spelling bee, and they have used school and trust money to buy $2 trophies for the science fair and the spelling bee. You can't give 2 trophies to the same kid, because then you're exceeding $2 per awarded student in an academic school year. Our advisory committee has made some suggestions that are going to make this easier to implement. We just need to work through them with the State Board of Education and their staff, and we see a change coming, but probably not until next year. So the next thing I wanted to talk about, and I showed you this on our website as well, is your school website requirements. And your school is required to have 10 things on the community council page of your school website. There's a list of those things here where, can you guys, I hope you haven't been seeing that the whole time. There's a list of those things here where you can go to our website and find the requirements. But please remember, the legislature and the state board have implemented these requirements because they want parents and members of the school community to know how they can access this information and be a part of this program. So you're required to have your council listed on your school website with contact information. You're required to have a schedule of your proposed meeting dates. You're required to have a report, and it's just a summary of how the money was spent in the last year. Someone asked for an example of the summary once, and really it depends on what your goals were. But if you had one goal and it was a reading goal, you can say, our goal was to improve reading scores by 10%. We received $76,000 from the program. We used that money to reduce class sizes in reading classes, to allow students to take 2 reading classes instead of 1, and also for reading tutors. And we did reach that goal. So that's 4 sentences, but it's a summary so parents can say, what are they doing with this money? Oh, look, I can see what they're doing with this money. You're also required to post a notice of your meetings 10 days before the meeting happens, and that notice needs to include an agenda for the meeting with action items identified and draft minutes of the prior meeting. We also ask that you keep your current year minutes on your school website. You are required to keep minutes for 3 years, but they don't need to be saved on your website. Most principals just have a binder in their office, which always makes me laugh. And then other things that you need to do is have an invitation for parents. Let them know how they can participate on your school community council. Have the rules of order and procedure on your website so people can know, how big is our council? What are the rules? If I go to a meeting, will I be allowed to talk? And again, I said that right here is where you can find a list and also a template for rules of order and procedure if your school doesn't have them. Finally, I want to talk about other plans that the council is required to weigh in on. And there are different responsibilities for each of these plans. The first plan that the council weighs in on is the school safety plan. The school safety plan is something that the council, by discussing it with educators, administrators, and parents, can identify at the school that needs to be corrected and is within the council's purview to correct. Now remember, the funds are not used for this plan. This is a separate section of code. The legislature gave this to councils because the legislature knew that councils got things done, but it's not part of the school land trust plan. So your school safety plan is something that you look at. Things that I've heard for school safety plans: an elementary school redid the painting in their parking lot. And they did that with district funds, but the district did that, but they're the ones who identified the problem and then mapped it out as part of their safety plan and contacted the district. The district agreed with them, and that's what the elementary school did as their school safety plan. A junior high had the parents work with the council on a device plan. So for the phones and iPads and everything that ends up coming to school, what are appropriate rules for that can keep our students safe and also focused on education? And the high school worked on a suicide prevention night. So that was one of the issues that they recognized in their school community that was not being completely addressed. And so they worked to address that. So in addition to your school safety plan, there's a safe technology and digital citizenship plan. This is a plan where most of it's a discussion. The district tells your school what they are doing to provide safe technology and filtering at the school. And then the council looks at that, discusses whether or not the students have adequate training on digital citizenship, and if the parents have adequate training on digital citizenship. There are some resources that provide lessons on safe technology and digital citizenship that we have on our website that are free. So just know it's not your job to provide the training. It's your job to identify if the training needs to happen. And then the third thing, and this is brand new, the principal is required to discuss the positive behaviors plan with the council.
Positive behavior plan.
Okay, let me find out who that is and mute them.
The district or the state?
The district. I'm gonna stop sharing my screen so that I can, well, it sounds like everyone's muted. Never mind. So the district, so the state requires each individual school to have a positive behavior plan. The principal is the one who creates it, but the state requires the principal to consult the council on this positive behaviors plan. The focus of this plan originally was to keep students from vaping. So just know what this is it's to focus on helping students have positive behaviors in their lives, and that as a council, you'll consult on that. None of these plans come back to us. So your district may ask to see them, but we're not going to ask to see them. We will survey you at the end of the year just to see if you're comfortable with it or if we need to find a way to provide more training. So now I'm going to stop sharing. We're back. Let's open it up for questions. So is there anybody who has a question and wants to unmute themselves? Okay.
Natalie?
Yes.
Hi. Thanks for this great presentation. I have a question back on, it was point 5 in regards to spending no more than $7,000 for an academic goal. Will you elaborate more on that? Were you saying it just could, for item A and B, that more than 7,000 couldn't go towards those components of a goal?
Absolutely, Katie. Thank you for asking that because that's a good question. So in your academic goal, you decide what you need for everything that you're going to use in your academic goal. That can include behavioral interventions. The only thing that there is a dollar limit on is if you want to implement digital citizenship training or safety plan education as part of that academic goal. And we don't see that very often because we don't see situations where a safety plan training fits in with an academic goal. But if you see that in your school, just make sure that you're not spending more than $7,000 just on the safety plan training or just on the digital citizenship training.
Got it. Thank you. That makes sense.
Great. Who else has a question?
Natalie, I've got one.
Hi.
Hi. I put it in the chat box there too. I'm curious if in the different school categories, elementary, junior high, high school, if there are any best practices that are ever documented that maybe we could look at, maybe get ideas from.
Absolutely. So all of the plans are public, and so you can review another school's plan, but we find that that's not really effective. So what we do is like what we're trying to do this next hour. So the next hour of our classes is going to be a sharing session, and we'll ask questions like, what does your school do that works? What has your council done that has improved academic experiences for your students? And then we'll also check and see what isn't working, and we'll give people a chance to ask questions so that you can say, hey, what is a great way that you guys have found to deal with English language learners in high schools? And because there's a big enough group of us tonight, we should be able to have a lot of great ideas in that sharing session. And please also know that quite often schools that are in the same feeder system communicate about what they're doing, because if the high school is noticing that kids from the junior high aren't coming into the high school prepared for advanced math, then they can contact the junior high and say, hey, how can we, get this up to par? Am I breaking up, Karen? Oh, Karen can't hear if I'm breaking up. I'm so sorry. It looks like we might be having website problems. And if we are, I'm really sorry. Okay,
we can hear you.
Good. I was so concerned. Thanks, Joanna. Okay, so any other questions?
I have a question. This is Heidi.
Hi.
Hi. I feel like I'm kind of new to the community council. I feel like there's like a slight disconnect between the parents being engaged with this part of the school process. Our school community council is really small. Like we barely hit the minimum that you need to even be considered like the council. So do you have tips for like a small community council and some timid members that aren't quite sure how to engage with the admin and things like that? I feel like our past meetings have just kind of been the principal being like, here's the stuff that we got to do. Does everyone agree? And we're like, yes. Like, do you know what I mean?
I absolutely know what you mean. So my first tip is probably not helpful for you this year, but just stay with this. So my first year, I sat in the room with big eyes and I didn't know what a rubric was. I didn't know what cohort data was. I did not understand the data that they were asking me to look at. So I just sat there. The second year, the principal walked in with the school improvement plan, which used to be required that the council create, and said, great, here's our school improvement plan. And I said, because I was a little more empowered, this is such a great draft. Thank you so much. Now our council can go through and review it. I know we all want to have great relationships with our principals, and I know that our principals most of them are just doing their best and they have a million things on their list, and this is one of them, but it's probably not the most important one for them. So if the chair of your council gets the other members involved in taking more responsibility for the council, then it's taking stuff off the principal's plate and putting it back into being parent-driven. Now, remember, parent-driven still has to be data-driven and research-based, but it puts it back in that parent perspective if the chair is just feeling a little bit empowered. Did that help, Heidi? I hope so.
Thank you. Yeah. Yes. Thank you. I feel like I was part of it last year, and I was elected chair this year, and so but I have a background with data and things. So the data part of it isn't confusing to me. It's just kind of like figuring out the ins and outs of the dynamic of the process, I guess. So
Absolutely.
I'm willing to kind of jump in at it, but at the same time, I don't want to step on toes. So I'm just trying to kind of figure out where that line is. Do you know what I mean?
And absolutely, we love being the intermediary, not the intermediary, like don't call us to call your principal unless things are really bad. But we love it when you say, hey, you know what, I did a training and Natalie said we needed to base our school and trust goals off of the teacher and student success plan. Can you provide us with a copy of that plan? Or, you know, we don't know how last year's plan's being implemented. Can we give you 15 minutes on next week's agenda to tell us how that's being implemented? And then the teachers can weigh in and see if they're seeing success. And definitely always feel confident to see the budget, because I know that there have been parents in the past who haven't followed up on the budget and then something wasn't implemented and they weren't sure why. But because they weren't following up, there wasn't an appropriate time to ask the principal until it was after, and it looked like, oh, you didn't hire that aide because you didn't support your council. But if you are doing it during the year, you can say, hey, why haven't we hired this aide yet? And the principal can say, we posted it and we haven't gotten any responses yet. And then your council can decide, do we want to keep looking for the aide or do we want to amend the plan? So that's another great way. And you can always say, as long as it's mostly true, that Natalie told you something.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions?
Natalie, I have a question.
Yes.
Marion Broadhead. I'm just a little confused. So we identified our areas of need and based on data, mathematics, science, and language arts. And we looked at the funds, and our land trust goals are written for science and mathematics. There are achievement gaps there. And then I wasn't, you know, TSSA is new, so I wasn't sure how that fit in, but we assigned the other gap goal where we needed to address academically, the TSSA funds. Now I'm thinking that you said something about TSSA needed to be reflected in land trust. I know we're doing what we're supposed to do, meeting academic needs. I don't know if and the state okayed our land trust plans and our district okayed TSSA, but I'm a little confused because we need all those things met and we're using the money in those ways. So will you clarify TSSA, how it relates to land trust?
Absolutely, I will. So TSSA is a district plan, and every district creates their own framework. So I will never know what your TSSA plan looks like. But your principal is required to get input from you, especially on the data you've reviewed and the academic needs that you've identified. And then you take that and you say, okay, what are these items that we've raised and that the principal has raised with our discussion in TSSA, and how can we use those to implement a school land trust goal? And some principals are going to say, hey, you know what? I've got reading covered with TSSA money. So let's put this all in math. And then you can say, cool, tell us what you're doing with the TSSA money for reading. It's not the council's job to get to help decide how that money is spent, but some principals are asking. And so just know that you can ask that question and get the information that you need, and that it really is required to be part of the TSSA, like to be
Okay.
You know what word I'm looking for. It's
Natalie, I'm the principal, but I wanted to make sure
yes. Oh, you're perfect.
We were transparent and everybody understood how the money was used. So we summarized TSSA, put it on the website. It's on our website. I just want to make sure that always our council knows how we use the money and we spend it appropriately. So I was just a little confused.
That's perfect. And you know what? That is a confusing thing because it's not something that we've seen yet. You know, this TSSA is brand new. And so we're going to be figuring it out, and your district is going to have great ideas on how to figure it out. Now, I want to give you guys the link for the evaluation, and please take a minute to fill out the evaluation. even if you are, if you're done, if you're not going to the next hour, please still fill out the evaluation. And here is the link to the evaluation. It's anonymous, but it does say if you have something that you want us to know about, you can put your contact information in there if you'd like. So there is, can you see it? Oh yeah, I'm way up at the top. If you go all the way down to the chat box, you can see the evaluation link. And then I'm also going to put in the link for next hour's class. So our next hour's class is going to start in about 5 minutes, and it is a sharing session. And
I don't mean to cut you off. Do we just stay on this link if we're...
No, you don't. We're opening
Okay.
a new link for it because we're recording them.
Gotcha.
So
Thank you.
I'm trying to find, I'm going to have to go one other place. I'm so sorry. I'm just trying to find the best way to give you that address. And it is through this link. Now, if you also wanted to participate in the role of chair or vice chair training that Paula just completed, then you can watch that recorded later. Okay, so the address is www.bit.ly/SCC share OCT28. And that should take you to the next class. Or it's also on your flyer or in the email. So please contact me with any more questions. I answer my phone between 8:30 and 5, and I answer my emails almost all the time. And we think you guys are doing an awesome job, and we just want to thank you for your good work. We love when councils succeed because it makes us feel like we're helping you succeed. So you're making us look good. But the most important thing is we are improving the quality of education for the students in our schools. So thank you for your good work. Contact me with any questions, and we'll see you in the next hour.